28 November 2022. This is one of my Warrafak moment Skidmarks, and this one is something that I think can add some value or some relief to somebody's life. And the title of the thing is Help Me, I'm Drowning. Now, all of us here in South Africa are experiencing the pinch of the economic issues, and we have been blessed again last week with a repo rate increase, and I did a Skidmark on that. I suggest you go and listen to it about interest and inflation. But today's Skidmark is focused on our personal experiences with things getting tough. And I had a mentor in my young day, and one of the things that he installed in me was the danger of debt. And he said in South Africa it's basically a rule that every young man, once he starts his life and puts his family together, for the rest of his life he will be paying a house bond and a car payment. And that was something that stuck in my head. There's not much that you can do about the bond. There are things, but let's leave the bond. Let's look about the car. Unfortunately, there's a standard, let's say, unwritten rule that cars must be traded in frequently. That is a very bad thing, very bad. When it comes to cars, I've got a simple philosophy. You don't make a loan to pay the deposit on a car. If you have to do that, you can't afford that vehicle. So the first thing is buy something that you can, something affordable. Maybe it's not the best and the nicest and the thing that you wanted, but at least it is transport. And then never take the thing on a term that's longer than 36 months and with a push to 48 months. But that's where you stop. If you have to go past those two numbers to afford the payment, you cannot afford that. And then drive that thing and look after it and pay it off and use it for at least another 2 or 3 years or 4 years. Otherwise, car expenses is something that will forever erode your financial freedom. And that is something that we have to install this on our children when they're young. Another thing in South Africa, people in general, people's expectations of their homes are based on what was reality in the 50s and the 60s. The days of big houses and big mansions are over. When I bought my place in 1994, my wife was all over me to expand the house, and I said to her, I'm not going to do it. I will not do that. It's a 4-bedroom house. We've got 2 children. So we have a spare room. And that's it. And that spare room is rarely used. Many people know that. And as the years went by, the children left the house, and today we're sitting here in that same house, and I said to her, look at the size of this place for 2 people. And that happens to many of us. So when you start off, make sure that you buy something that suits your needs at that moment. If you start buying to impress the neighborhood, you must understand you are getting yourself into financial debt that has not got real value. And let me stop there. Today we're sitting with a situation, the interest rates has been jacked up again, and people with debt has got problems. Now, one thing is for sure, that same mentor also told me that the biggest trap is a debt trap. And I saw that In the late 80s, things were rough in South Africa economic, and the mines were closing by the dozen a week. I was in the mining and industrial supplying business, and I had a huge operation, and that operation crashed for the simple reason that it lost 80% of its customers in a matter of 3 weeks due to sanctions. And unfortunately, the debt burden of the company was of such there was no way out of it. And I saw my ass. I lost everything. I walked away from that Supreme Court with the clothes on my back. And that was a fucking hard lesson that I learned there. And in my second life, one thing that I refused to do and stuck to it was debt. So from 1992, when I started building my new life, I've never had an overdraft. I don't make debt clothing accounts and shop accounts and accounts all over the fucking place. None of that. None of that. And in that previous life of mine, I was driving a new car every year. In my second life, I never had a car that I did not use for less than 6 or 8 years. That is what I did. And I see today the young guys with their businesses, they are frustrated, they are scared, they are drowning. They are drowning. And if you look, for a part of my life, I also operated as a business analyst. And I was a brutal business analyst because I didn't pull punches. I look at your business and I come back to you with a report and I tell you exactly what I see. And then it's up to you to do it. If you do it, good. If you don't do it, good. It's not my business. My job was to analyze it for you and give you the facts so that you can make your management. And the thing is, most of the youngsters that are battling today, a big part of their battle is expensive vehicles and rent. And those are the things that are eating them alive. And if you think about it carefully, it could have been avoided. But that is on the small businesses. Let's talk on a personal level. You and your personal capacity must be very, very aware of your debt position. You may be tempted to go out on Friday night, take the family for a dinner and whatever, and spend 1,000 rand. If you have debt, be it an overdraft, be it a credit card, be it what, rather pay that 1,000 rand down on one of those debt accounts. Rather pay it in there and have a simple meal at home, because things are going to get tougher, and debt is the thing that will strangle you. Guys that overestimated their value and bought expensive houses or expensive cars, they barely made the payment, and things get tough and they fall in arrears. By the time that you're 2 payments behind, you're done, you're finished, you're over. On the 3rd payment, the bank will in any case repossess, but you're done. Because you could, under normal conditions, you barely made the payment. Now you're 2 in arrear. How are you going to clear those arrears? You cannot. You're done. Debt is going to swallow you. So, be careful of debt. And then I see many guys, they start selling their household goods, selling furniture and so. Yes, I understand desperation, but you must also understand it doesn't make no sense to sell something that you still need, because at some stage you'll have to replace it. So think carefully before you start selling your stuff. And then let's get to a big monster, food. Food is a serious problem. Now, I grew up as a young child. My parents were extremely poor, extremely poor. And I'm not going to talk about their history and how my father worked himself up, how he progressed through. Fact of the matter is, I grew up, for a part of my life, we were extremely poor. My grandfather used to say, look after the pennies, pounds will look after themselves. Look after the cents and the rands will look after themselves. And I have got a thing when I walk in the streets and shopping centers and things like that, I look on the ground a lot because I have picked up so many coins in parking lots, on sidewalks, in passages, everywhere. And over the years I've always collected that in a bottle on its own. And one day my granddaughter asked me, what is that? And I said, that is pennies from heaven. And I explained to her where they come from. And I'm going to show you a picture of the bowl that is standing on my desk currently, in which I throw the coins that I pick up in the street. And if you look at those coins, you can see there are some of them that are severely punished. They've been run over by cars and things like that, many. But I pick it up because my grandmother told me, money that you pick up is pennies from heaven. Keep that in mind. Now let's get to the food. In my house, there are a few items that I always have in stock. And this is not a program in which I'm going to try and tell you how to manage your food stocks and things. I'm just going to tell you what and the first thing is coffee. Now you see the picture here, this is the coffee that we use. Now that coffee sells roughly for 150 Rand a bottle in the supermarket. But periodically they go on special and then they sell for 100 Rand. And that's been for the past few years already like that. They go down 1/3 in price when they go on special. So when the special is up on the coffee, I buy at least 10 bottles because that will normally last until the next special cycle. Now I'm fortunate here, I can look for a special on it between Spar and Checkers. One of those shops it will come up on. And when it's special, I go and I buy 10 bottles. Tellers has looked at me weird many times when I just put my basket down and it's only coffee. But buying on special makes a huge difference because I'm using the coffee daily, but I'm using coffee that I bought at 30% less than what the price is on the shelf. So if I only buy once when the coffee is finished, I will be paying 30% more for my coffee. As simple as that. So just in that action, by buying only when it's on special, I'm saving a lot of money. By buying, if you buy 9 bottles, 3 is actually for free. And think about it. And then there's another little peculiarity about this specific coffee is that bottle in which that coffee comes, you go to the bottling guys where you buy bottles for canned fruit and honey and all those things, you will see that those bottles are selling for 67 Rand a bottle. Now imagine that. Coffee costs 100 Rand on special, but the bottle is 60 Rand. So I'm actually only paying 40 Rand for the coffee. But that's another thing that I stock up on is cooking oil. We're not big cooking oil users. I use cooking oil primarily in my deep fryer because I like to make chips and I like to make Russians and I like to make samosas and things like that. I like to do that. That's one of my guilty pleasures. But buying the oil, same as with the coffee. Only when it's on special, and when it's on special I buy because this shelf of mine has got room to have 6 bottles in there. So that's where I stick to. And incidentally, if you look at this image, the bottles there at the back was bought in January when the sunflower oil was on special and it was 43 Rand for 2 liters. In the meantime, these oil prices have shot up to 170 Rand for 2 liters I've seen. You see it's calming down and coming back. We've been really ripped off and fucked sideways by the dealerships because this oil is manufactured locally. I don't know why the price got out of hand, but it is the dealers that are doing it to us. It's not a real beef. I wish there was an organization that could look after shit like this. Any case, so there's my cooking oil, and by buying on special, I save a lot. Same with the sugar. I also buy my sugar in bulk when it's on special. And as you can see, there's now two types of sugar. There's one from, I think it's from Checkers, and the other two is from Spartans when they're on special. At some stage, we were buying a brand, specific brand, Hewlett's or Salati or something like that. And I just reached a point one day where I decided that sugar is sugar, end of the story. Yeah, these no brand packets that you buy, sometimes you can find that they are a little bit clustered, and so you break them up. It's not hard work to do, but you save a lot. Price difference between the no name brand and the brand sugar, sometimes on the 2.5 kilograms, can up to 10 rand a packet difference. And another thing that is weird in the sugar in South Africa, a 5 kilogram pack of sugar is more expensive than 2.5s. And I spoke to a dealer one day about that, and he said, yeah, but that's simple economics. We sell 90 packets of 2.5 for every 10 packets of 5. I said, yeah, but still it doesn't make sense. Why the fuck is 2.5 kilograms, 2.5 kilograms cheaper than a 5 kilogram? But okay, that's their story. And then, the final product I want to show you is these things. You must have seen them in the supermarket. I buy a lot of it so that I have it in stock. Why do I do that? These things have got a long shelf life, and they do make it possible to turn a cheap meat stew into something very tasty with very little effort. That is the big thing. And that is how you can save. Because people tend to glide by the cheap cuts of meat for many reasons. But as I grew up as a youngster, the bulk of our meat eating was stews. And stews that were boosted with beans, and boosted with tomatoes, and boosted with onions, and boosted with spinach and things like that. Things that was grown in my mother's vegetable garden. We'll have to look at the cheaper cuts. I've got a blog, Mankos, and there is a hell of a lot of recipes there. Those recipes were originally, I started that blog with one mission, and that was to get more men to cook. So you won't see a lot of recipes, you'll see a lot of stories. And if you read the story, you can make the dish. But we have to think about it. And I've also got a principle in my house, and it's been like that for quite a while, for many years. Not more than 3 items on a plate. So, if we make pap and wors, it will be the pap and it will be the wors, and there will be a salad. And that's the end of the story. And you can use this tinned relishes, heat it up and use it for sheba on the pap and things like that. You can stretch simple meals with those canned relishes. But the fact of the matter is, we must understand things is tough out there, and it's going to get tougher. And on Friday, my youngest son said on Saturday, he will take us out for dinner at one of the chicken places in town. And I said to him, sorry, I'm not interested, I'm not going to go. I've got chicken here in my deep freeze. I'll do a chicken for us, and that's the end of the story. Because the reality is, that flatty that I bought there at the Spar, it's cost me 73 rand. I prepare the thing and do it myself, and 3 people eat from it, and my wife made a salad. And that's it. Whereas if the 3 of us went to the restaurant, it would have been 450, 500, maybe 600 rand. So, the pestilence lockdowns, me and my wife had a thing that every Friday night we went out for dinner. And that has been like that for years. And I stay on a little farm, so it's out into town. And with the lockdowns, that stopped. Since the lockdown came back, I don't go out anymore, because it just does not make sense to me to pay that much for a plate of food. You go with you, your wife and 2 children, you go out for the evening and you eat, and you won't walk out there paying less than $500, $600, $700. Now just for a moment imagine you take that $700 and you shop wisely at a grocery store. You will most probably be able to feed your family for a week with it. We will have to focus on looking after the pennies. And that is important. And I don't want to end this program on a sad note and a dark note. The fact of the matter is, we have to accept the circumstances because we cannot change the circumstances. But do it in a fun way. Think about your meals that you prepare. Think about it. How to take a cheap cut and make a nice stew and trim it with a relish and have a plate of pap with it, a few cuts of tomato or lettuce leaves, and enjoy it. It's tasty and it's there in your home between your loved ones. So let us not allow depression to overwhelm us and send us into panic. For many years I taught skippers how to take ski boats into the surf on the Zululand coast. Now anybody that knows that Zululand coast knows that it is a hell of a dangerous thing to take a ski boat into the sea there. And I've trained many guys. And the fact of the matter is, the first thing I punched into their brains is, whatever you do, don't panic. Because if you panic, you will fuck up. That is a fact of. So on this morning, let's not panic. Let's think and start looking at where you can save the pennies. Saving the pennies, and the pounds will look after themselves. Thank you for your support. Please hit a like and a share and a subscribe, and have a nice day.